Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars, and let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, because right now Bitcoin is getting this massive pump on the lower time frames. So I will start with the low time frame analysis and then move on to higher and higher time frames. As always, nothing in this video is my personal opinion. I am only sharing the objective technical analysis and nothing more. In yesterday's video, we were talking about this descending trend line, where if we were getting a break from this before we broke down below this critical level of support at 85.3k, then we could be expecting a next move to the upside in the short term. Notice how on this 4-hour time frame we first broke this massive downtrend that we were previously in. However, we are about to head into this next area of resistance above here, which currently is sitting at about 90.3k. In the case that we do end up breaking through that level, the next area of resistance above is along this descending trend line, which is setting at around 93.2k. Now keep in mind that this candle has not closed yet, so something that you could keep an eye on over the next couple hours potentially is if we end up rejecting here or getting some kind of big retracement on the lower time frames, if this is actually going to form a bearish divergence here, which is when you have higher highs in the Bitcoin price but lower highs in the RSI momentum indicator. Because just because we are pumping right now does not mean that this candle is actually going to close here, although obviously if you zoom into the lower time frames, this is now in a very steep uptrend, so it makes sense that so long as we're holding above that, this is likely going to continue for a while longer. But at the same time, if we do end up seeing some kind of rejection here, then that is just a warning signal to keep an eye on. Another thing to keep an eye on is the fact that we have now flipped this previous level of resistance on the 1-day time frame into a level of support sitting from 87,000 all the way down to 85k, and the next area of resistance is right above where we are currently trading, sitting from 90,000 all the way up to 92k. So especially if we start getting candle closes above 92k on this daily time frame, guys, then the next area of resistance above is already from 95 all the way up to 96k. However, for now that is not the case, and I also want to be very clear, just like I have been saying over and over again on this daily time frame, we are still bearish biased so long as we do not break above 106k. Previously, this was 115k. This was right up here, because as soon as we got this lower high, we already flipped bearish on Bitcoin, right? So we retested that 115k level and saw nothing but lower lows and lower highs after that. So obviously we've done very well by being bearish in this trend. We're going to keep an open mind about a possible reversal coming here. And of course, I am taking advantage of this short-term counter trend bounce by leverage trading on the lower time frames, taking advantage of this pump here with a long position. But at the same time, the broader trend actually has not confirmed a full-on reversal here. So anyone who's saying like, yeah, this is the bottom, this is for sure gonna pump to new all-time highs from here, cannot possibly be calling for this with any confidence, considering that there's no signal that has actually confirmed that this trend is actually changing, right? So that is why we need to keep an open mind about a possible rollover here at some point in the future. Although right now in the immediate short term, things are still looking bullish for Bitcoin. So hopefully that makes sense. In the shorter term, things are still looking bullish for Bitcoin. However, on the daily time frame, while it could start to pump further to the upside, there is actually no confirmation of a trend change just yet. Now we're quickly going to take a look at these Bitcoin ETF flow tables before moving on to the liquidity analysis. Today we got an inflow of about $130 million, which, just like I said yesterday with this $150 million outflow, these are relatively small numbers compared to some of the numbers that we saw earlier over the past few weeks. So therefore there's not too much to really say about this. Overall, the Bitcoin ETFs are not super bearish and they're not super bullish either. So I'm going to skip over that for now and immediately move to this Bitcoin liquidation heat map. First of all, on the 2-week time frame, because we have now taken out a bunch of liquidity here around this 90,000 US dollar level, and there is still a bunch of liquidity to the upside, for example at 94k, but even as high as 98k in the Bitcoin price. So as I've been saying over and over again, even before we broke that descending trend line on the 4-hour time frame, there was a bunch of liquidity piling up to the upside here. So once we broke that trend line, we needed to actually look towards this liquidity to potentially be grabbed and act as magnets for the Bitcoin price. Notice how right here, there is now a bunch of liquidity to the downside as well. For example, around this 85K level. But like I told you on that low time frame analysis, we need to see some kind of break of the trend before we can start looking towards downside liquidity being grabbed. Until then, it does not make sense to be super bearish on Bitcoin, because at that point you are trading against the trend. So that is just something to take note of. Now zooming out all the way to the 1 year time frame for Bitcoin, because this is actually very important to show you guys. I can already imagine what is going on Twitter right now. When we see a low time frame pump like this, you're going to see a bunch of people saying, yeah, the bottom is in, and we are straight going to new all-time highs from here. And yes, while we did take out most of that downside liquidity, guys, there is no reason, and I do mean that literally, no reason yet to be targeting this 126K level of liquidity, because we haven't seen a break of that downtrend that I keep showing you every single day. So what I try to do in these videos is also show you all of the warning signals and potential things to be looking out for in the market, even while we are seeing a low time frame pump. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you want to see more of these videos, I share my Bitcoin analysis every single day on the channel. So make sure to subscribe with notifications on so you do not miss any of these important update videos. But regardless, if you do end up doing that or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.